Hello everyone, my name is Madan Mohan Rao, Research Director at YourStory, and on behalf of all of us at YourStory, welcome to today's discussion on decoding new growth avenues with machine learning. When it comes to leveraging technology to come out of a crisis stronger, Indian startups are leading by example. The pandemic threw businesses a curveball and the demand for online solutions surged. But these ventures were quick to tap into their technical expertise to cater to the customers with their disruptive solutions. For many of these startups, it was machine learning based solutions that have enabled them to grow and stay agile despite the difficult circumstances. A subsection of AI, machine learning has been gaining traction in the Indian startup ecosystem because of a multitude of benefits. These benefits range from boosting customer experience and offering actionable data-backed insights to fraud prevention and risk management. In a 2020 survey by McKinsey, nearly half the respondents stated that their organizations have adopted AI and ML for at least one function. As a digital accounting solutions company, Intuit India has been aggressively exploring how ML could power its solutions and help businesses scale to new heights while optimizing costs. In this fireside chat today, we have with us Vignesh Subrahmaniam, Principal Data Scientist at Intuit India, who will take us through how machine learning is reimagining digital solutions, the growth opportunities that the technology can lead to, and the challenges that need to be overcome to achieve them. Vignesh leads the ML program for QuickBooks Advanced, and he has over 12 years of experience in embedding AI and ML solutions in industries like aerospace and healthcare. He's an alumnus of the Indian Statistical Institute and was working with GE Global Research before joining Intuit India. Welcome aboard, Vignesh. We also have with us Annand, Chief Product Officer at Simplilearn, an alumnus of the University of Texas at Austin. Anand describes himself as a product leader who believes that data and customer feedback should drive business growth strategies. He earlier worked with organizations like Rackspace and Dell. Welcome aboard, Anand.
Great to be here.
My first question to each of you is, what are some of your thoughts about the evolution of machine learning-based solutions in India? What are some of the key growth drivers behind the rise in the technology's implementation? Why don't we start with you, Vignesh?
Sure. Hey, thank you so much, for this opportunity. So I can actually, start with my own alma mater, the Indian Statistical Institute. So the Indian Statistical Institute has contributed foundationally, to the evolution of machine learning. Interestingly, one of the first electronic computers in India for data analysis and optimization was installed at the ISI in 1960. So almost like 50 years back, the founder, Professor Madanabis, realized the importance of computers in helping derive intelligence and insights from data. So, it's been, so India has been really ahead of the game in using a lot of, in using computers for deriving insights from data and learning from data. And this did not just start, 10, 20 years back, but we have a very rich history of doing that. Now, one of the things that is also very interesting is that several foundational algorithms in machine learning, such as the bootstrap, design of experiments, and Bayesian analysis, have been developed and refined by scientists from India, and especially more so from the ISI itself. So in many ways, I believe that Indian scientists have made foundational contributions to the science and mathematics of machine learning. So what this all means is that India has extraordinary talent to not only engineer machine learning based solutions, but also for driving core innovation in machine learning itself. And that really is the first driver of the machine learning based revolution that's happening in India, just really around talent. So we have extraordinary talent within the country to do that. And partly because, in India, we have a lot of emphasis on mathematics. And mathematics is the foundational, science behind machine learning. So it's extremely good that we have strong mathematics programs that really help build that pipeline and talent. Now, the second driver is really the huge, massive Indian software industry, which is in the cusp of software as a service revolution, right? So what this means is that when you have machine learning scientists working side by side with engineers who are building some of the best software services, then what happens is that we will soon have AI-powered software services. And that to me is the holy grail of the digital revolution. And that is exactly what we are doing in Intuit India. So those are the two main drivers. So essentially extraordinary talent that we have in the country with a history of actually building the foundational science behind machine learning, as well as a very strong software as a service business industry. And then we just need to put together the machine learning scientists with those engineers, and then we will be able to create magic.
Thanks, Vignesh, for setting that context so well, connecting the science and the software parts of ML. Let me ask Anand the similar question, which is, Anand, what is driving ML in India today, and what are some of the evolutionary trends you see? Anand?
Yeah, Madan, thank you. And I think Vignesh covered a lot of ground there. I'll try to add on top of what Vignesh just said. See, I'll try to generalize the problem statement a little bit. Any technology adoption typically happens in a sort of viral fashion when the conditions are ripe for specific, input criteria actually to be true, right? So let's talk about what has actually happened in the last 3 to 4 years in India specifically that has made conditions ripe for ML and AI. And I think there are two big things, one of which definitely Vignesh already covered, right? Which is the whole SaaS revolution has been very, very thick. A lot of software platforms, software programs have been coming out quite a bit. But the second thing that's happened is the amount of data deluge that's happened has actually come to a place where you start looking at it and saying, look, humans can't do this. You can't sift through the data to figure this out. And you don't, even rule-based systems start failing at some level of depth and certainty, where you look at it and say there's way too much data and way too many software programs out there trying to figure out what to do with the data, that there comes a certain threshold where you have to have automated systems that actually kind of are more intelligent than most, right? And that's where sort of the last 3-4 years AI has really taken over. And just to give a little bit of context there, just this year alone, 9,762 petabytes of data, were used in India, and that's growing roughly 40% year over year, right? So you start looking at that, you look at the plethora of startups, plethora of software products that are being built out. It is just the right condition for AI and ML to actually really thrive. And that's what you've seen for the last 3-4 years, from being sort of a backdoor scientist's favorite toy to play with to being mainstream. That's really what's really hit the mainstream in the last 3-4 years. One more additional data point is when you look at the kind of learners that come to us, the kind of companies that come to us, there are fundamentally 4 big domains that actually come to us quite often. One of them is, of course, the IT and software industry. The second is banking and financial, automotive, and telecom. These are the 4 industries that we find coming to us quite a bit, both learners and corporates who need training in AI and ML, and who are using these AI/ML trainings to actually go build products. So these are the 4 driving forces in India today.
Thanks, Anand, for adding those elements of the rise of data and also the sectoral kind of case studies. I have a couple of questions specific for Vignesh now. Vignesh, can you tell us a little bit more about how is ML powering innovation at Intuit India? How is it helping you in your products like QuickBooks Advanced and TurboTax Online, Vignesh?
So if you look at Intuit's vision, so Intuit's vision is really about powering prosperity, and AI is one of the foundational technologies that Intuit uses to make this vision a reality. So to give you an example, in QuickBooks, we have been using AI-powered error detection, to act as a spell checker for financial data that is being entered. So when you're a small business and then you're using software to essentially take care of, manage, and record all your financial data and your financial history, a lot of errors and anomalies in data entry keeps happening, right? And then so when you have a large firm, you will have a very large accounting department that will kind of like keep track of all your accounts and ensure that there are no errors and so on. But if it comes to like small businesses, they might not necessarily have the bandwidth or the workforce to do that, right? And this is where software like QuickBooks, intelligent software like QuickBooks come in. So what we have done is that we have AI-powered error detection systems that basically help small businesses manage and record their financial data with confidence. So whenever there is an erroneous data entry that's happening anywhere, it immediately flags it, sends workflow approvers to say, hey, something weird is happening. So it's a classic example of how we are using AI to basically help small businesses manage their finances really well. Another example is that AI helps derive foundational insights into how a small business is performing, with key metrics such as profits and cash flow. So typically what happens is that if you're a large firm, you'll have a large team of financial analysts who would basically be taking care of your financial health. But then when you're a small business, you cannot afford that. So that's where AI comes in once again. We have algorithms that at scale keep a watch on the financial health of the millions of small businesses that work with Intuit, that subscribe to Intuit software, and then we help them derive insights on how they can better manage the finances better. So these are 2 examples of how we are really using AI to power innovation at Intuit India, and all of this is happening out here in India itself.
So Vignesh, we've talked quite a bit about the opportunities that open up if you use ML, but there also, I guess, are some challenges along the way. What are some of these challenges and how can companies overcome these challenges? How is Intuit helping companies overcome these challenges, Vignesh?
Yeah, I think that's actually a very wonderful question. So if you think about it, I think the biggest challenge with using machine learning based solutions is that many evangelists for machine learning tend to pick the wrong problems to be solved using machine learning, right? So that's one of the first challenges, about adoption of technology. So machine learning, like any other powerful technology, tends to be incorrectly used for situations where a simple non-tech intensive solution could have solved the problem much more simply and elegantly, right? So that's the first problem. So if I were to use a very simple analogy, it's like you want to build heliports and helicopters, to help people commute between two towns with excellent road connectivity. Now, why would you do that, right? When a simple bus service could have done the job better with much lesser expense and hassle, right? So oftentimes we have people who are so excited about machine learning that they find the wrong problems, for machine learning to solve that problem, right? And that's the first mistake that they end up making. The second big mistake that essentially starts happening is that the problems being solved are often not the most important ones for a customer, right? And this happens when the technologist is more in love with the technology rather than empathizing with the customer problems. So when this happens, there is a tendency to over-engineer, and then the ROIs don't make sense because you're more interested about seeing machine learning succeed rather than in really helping your customers solve the problem. So does it make sense? So those are the two real things. You end up solving the wrong problems, or you end up solving something that the customer does not really care about. And these are the two main reasons where I have found that machine learning based solutions fail to take off. So what are we doing at Intuit for this? So one of the things is that Intuit has a very strong emphasis on machine learning scientists actually empathizing with customer problems. So we have what are called as follow me homes, where we actually are invited by product managers to come and really understand how customers use the products and to really understand the pain points, because that empathy is extremely important if you want to solve, customer problems. Now that's the first thing, right? That you basically end up doing things that really matter to the customer. The second thing that Intuit does, and it does it really well, is that we have realized that machine learning scientists need to collaborate very closely with product managers and XD, that's experience design, to understand where exactly in the product machine learning would make the most positive impact on customer experience. So it's not really about a machine learning scientist coming along and saying that, hey, I have this wonderful algorithm and I just want to go along and productionize it and solve something. No, right? If you go along that path, most likely you will end up building something that does not really matter. And this is what a lot of people actually end up doing, and that's why they end up failing. But then if you're willing to kind of like come back and say that, I'm going to actually start collaborating with product managers, with experienced designers, with the PD team, with the product development team, and understand where exactly the pain points are. And then you open up your mind and then you're willing to think a little orthogonally, you'll actually come up with some amazing solutions that really matter. So these are the two things that we do, to basically help some of those challenges.
Thanks, Vignesh, for bringing up the issues of alignment and of empathy in the context of AI and ML. I've got a couple of specific questions now for Anand. Anand, you have more than 2 million learners globally on your platform. What kind of offerings do you have for them in this space of AI and ML? What do learners come to you for, and what do they get out of it? Anand?
No, great question, Madan. Actually, I'll tell you a funny story. About 3-4 years back, we were thinking, what should we get into this AI ML space? Should we create a program or a course? And we have certain sort of indicative numbers we look at, and we think, look, is this going to really scale or not? And at the time, we were actually on the verge of saying, look, we should delay it for another year or two because it's not going to take off, right? And we made the right decision. We actually launched the product, so thankfully we do have that many learners. Other thing I wanted to share is we are actually 3 million at this point of time. As of last week, we crossed 3 million learners globally. So that's another sort of interesting news there. But I think to the question you're asking, right? If you look at the learners who take our AI ML courses today, 40% of them that are coming in are very, very new out of college, brand new minted, graduates, if you may. And we'll talk about what they want, but that's 40%. 40% are mid-career professionals. These are people who are actually either developer or analysts already, and they are trying to figure out how to apply, machine learning in their role, if you may. And then there's this 10-20% that's leadership, and honestly, very clueless leadership that is looking at it and saying, look, what do I do with AI ML and how do I apply it to my business, right? Very fairly so. The other thing to realize is, again, across these 4 verticals, right? These 4 are sort of driving sort of the cutting edge, if you may. IT and software, banking and financial, automotive and telecom. These are sort of the 4 areas that people come to us for. And the story is actually quite separate based on the persona that comes to us, right? If you look at the new college grad, they're coming in and saying, I know that AI ML is a technology that's taken off and it's going to continue to drive the future of technology. So I have to be ready to know this technology, and find the relevant role with the relevant skills to find the right job. And there we basically work with them to create sort of job placement programs where we help these folks to get into either more of an ML engineer program or more of a data science role, if you may. So that's about 40% of the people that come to us, and they're, I want the first job in data and AI, and I want it specifically in AI and ML. Then you have your mid-career professionals. These are typically people, who grew up being either computer scientists or being data analysts or data scientists, and they just realized AI and ML is actually changing the game of what they do at their company. And if they don't learn this technology, they're going to be left behind completely, right? And so you have these people who have about 5 to 10 years of experience. They're deep techies, very good at what they do, like Vignesh is, right? Vignesh is exceptional at what he does from what I can clearly see, right? But these are people who are really good at what they do, but they realize that this is a technology that's actually disrupting the entire space. And these are folks then coming to us and saying, look, I need to be retrained, and I need to understand how this is going to change my job. So we teach them practitioner skills to be pretty good at what they do today. And then you have your leadership team that's coming and saying, look, my teams keep talking to me about data and AI, and specifically ML algorithms that need to be used. I have no idea what this is, and I don't think I'll ever learn the algorithms and the statistics behind it. But tell me, how can I identify a business case or an example of where I can apply it? And I think Vignesh brought up this whole idea of working with the customer and the product management team to figure out what are the real business cases where you can apply it. We teach leaders how to do that, right? So we have really 3 different programs and 3 different sets of people coming to us with completely 3 different use cases. But that's the application of AI and ML today in terms of our learner pool.
Thanks, Anand. Those are very impressive numbers. I didn't know that it crossed 3 million users already instead of 2 million. I stand corrected. So what do you think this means for the growth of the domain in general? What do these numbers indicate in terms of interest from the learners? And in the next coming year or two, do you see these numbers growing even faster, even bigger, Anand?
Yeah, so Madan, obviously this is a happy story. So I'll tell you the numbers a little bit here. Since we launched our AI ML programs, the numbers have actually grown every year 100%, right? The number of enrollments that we're seeing has more than doubled every year. But what's even more exciting and interesting is we actually, we started off with what I consider a very affordable program for what I consider new college grads, a little more affordable. You can get to it pretty quickly. We quickly followed that up with a very premium product, which we today do with Purdue University and IBM. And let me be very transparent, it's not cheap, right? You've got to pay 2 lakh rupees to actually be enrolled in this program to actually do it. And it's very strange when I tell you that even though the pricing is higher, our growth rate is still 100% year over year, right? So what does it tell you? People are willing to pay top dollar for these kind of programs, and a lot of people are willing to pay for it, right? So the net of it is, if you look at just learner enrollments and the amount of money they're willing to pay, the growth of this domain is actually almost virtually guaranteed, because the kind of demand that the industry has created is then creating a signal for the new learners to realize that they should pay this much money, and the ROI on that investment is super high. So net, yes, 100% growth year over year, 100+% growth year over year with very high price points as well. Bodes very well for this industry.
Thanks, Anand. Let me ask Vignesh a similar question, which is, Vignesh, in what ways does all this AI ML technology fit into your plans at Intuit India for the long-term business growth? Vignesh?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to add to what Anand said, I think when I started my career as a data scientist 12 years back, data science as a field did not even exist. Okay. So I was my own career into statistics was really more about, I was very passionate about weather forecasting. Okay. So I was extremely passionate about weather forecasting. And then I said that, I like predicting things and so on and seeing the future. Was good at mathematics. And then so I thought, the right place for me to go was to go to the Indian Statistical Institute, did my bachelor's, master's, my PhD over there. Now, so what am I coming to over here? What I'm going to say is that when you have machine learning at one point of time, about 8 years back, was a very niche domain. Okay, there's as niche as quantum physics or nanotechnology and things like that. It was very, very niche. So very few people, people who are really passionate about it, would join that field and then would learn about it. I mean, you don't find too many people learning about algebraic topology, right? It's a very interesting area that I studied in, but then you don't find too many people wanting to do courses in algebraic topology. Now, what has changed is that people have realized the power of machine learning, right? And the only way that you can harness the true power of machine learning is by democratizing a technology. And this is where I strongly believe that, what Anand is doing with his platform, I think is democratizing machine learning. As you have more and more people getting to understand what machine learning is capable of, as they start to understand, the foundations of it, right? They will be able to use it much better. So it's almost like, you kind of like, why did the automobile industry take off, right? The automobile industry took off because people made it very easy to drive cars, right? I mean, it's not the case for planes yet, because it still takes a lot of effort to learn how to pilot a plane, right? I mean, maybe 200 years from now, maybe people will be piloting planes as easily as piloting, driving cars. But then they made driving so easy, so trivial. I mean, you did not need to be an engineer, to basically, drive a car. I mean, and interestingly, the word engineer actually comes from somebody who would drive a railway engine, a loco engine. Okay, so that's how the word engineer actually came from. There were actually people who used to sit in the engine and they used to operate the engine. And engineering became a discipline that started out with learning out how to operate an engine, right? So it was very sophisticated. So if you want to basically enable the masses to basically benefit from the technology, you need learning platforms that will basically democratize it. So if you look at what we are doing in Intuit, so we have essentially, we have Intuit India is one of the 3 places, where we have a strong machine learning team. Bangalore was one of them. We have a team in Israel, and we have teams in Mountain View and San Diego too, in the US. Now, we have strong machine learning scientists who basically, much like me, who work on building foundational algorithms, and platforms, within Intuit's own machine learning platform, that we want other people to start using. The second part of it is really around, having our engineers, having our product managers come along and really become more involved in understanding what AI is, right? And understanding what machine learning is, right? So there is definitely an interest, but then you need to equip them. It's not enough to say that, hey, I'm interested in cricket, right? You need to learn how to play cricket. You need to take some courses and you need to get trained. You need to get coached to be a good cricketer. I mean, it's not enough if you just keep watching cricket matches, if you're really interested in learning how to be a good cricketer. So I think that's the second part of it. So we are also looking at enabling large, all our engineers and product managers into becoming more and more interested, more and more equipped, to basically use machine learning in what they do. And that is really how we want to go ahead, in making Intuit an AI-driven expert platform. So it's not just enough to have a core set of like really good machine learning scientists, but we also need a large amount of the workforce within any organization understanding the basics of machine learning and knowing how they can use it to basically solve their problems.
Thanks so much, Vignesh, for bringing up the issue of democratization of access to data and technology. My next question to you is about security and privacy. As an accounting solutions provider that's empowering so many SMBs in India, how does ML help Intuit India meet businesses' concerns about cybersecurity and data privacy? Vignesh?
So if you look at this question, there are basically, I see, 2 dimensions to this question. So the first dimension is whether machine learning can help small businesses secure their businesses, in a very digital world. And the answer is yes. We have several machine learning models that run, daily they're instantaneous real-time machine learning models that basically help protect our customers from, the hundreds of cyber risks or the thousands of cyber risks that exist, right? So that we are doing already. The second dimension is around using data and AI ethically, right? And this is becoming more and more important. And Intuit is absolutely committed to this very important dimension, because we have some very strong data privacy controls, that basically ensure that we use the data that we have of our customers in a manner that is ethical, to use it.
Thanks so much, Vignesh. My last question now is for Anand. Anand, you've had extensive experience as a product leader and you're using customer feedback to drive business growth. So how do you at Simplilearn want to use AI and ML to solve customer needs in education? And how will this grow the sector for you? Anand?
So thanks, Madan. And I think it's less of want to, we're already doing it. Some of these are in proof of concept stage. Some of them are about to be productized, if you may. But I think it's a great question. I think education, just to take a little bit of a step back, right? If you look at it, and you look at edtech specifically, you'll find that most of the online providers, if you ask them what their completion rates are, you'll find that they're all sub 10%. So there's a huge challenge, actually. When you take something from a physical classroom to an online format, you just see a lot of learner drop off. And the reason that happens is online, some of the online platforms haven't figured out how to create personalization at scale, right? And so you get into this problem that you come into a class and you realize this is just not interesting, or it doesn't teach me the way I want to learn. So the holy grail of education, if you may, at least in the online format, is how do you personalize at scale? So, and I'll tell you, a lot of edtech providers are trying to solve this problem, if you may. And I think hopefully in the bootcamp format, which is what we teach, where there's live sessions, there are online videos, and there are challenges. We hope to be the first to actually solve the problem. So in the context of solving this big problem, which then drives a lot of value for the learners because more will complete, more will find it more exciting, more engaging. You'll have a classroom where you're actually talking to peers who are more like you, and it creates a customized sort of touch and feel. What are the top 3-4 problems that we are solving, right? Number one, if you look at just the classroom itself, ideally what should happen is you're in a class with multiple students. If this was a physical classroom, you would look by body cues. You should be able to tell, look, that student's engaged, that student's not engaged. And you know what the teachers used to do in our times? If they find some student is dozing off, they'll ask, hey, Anand, can you answer this question you just talked about? And you just wake them up and you bring them back into the fold, if you may, right? But it's harder in the online format. So are there ways to do sentiment analysis, and are there ways to figure out engagement levels in class? So that's one big, sort of swath of problems we're trying to solve. If you take yourself outside the platform, you're talking about cohorts of learners going through a series of learnings, right? And I can tell you there's a lot of learners, some might be really interested and excited about statistics. Some might be less so about statistics and maybe more interested in programming. They drop off at certain points, right? So the question really becomes, at a cohort level, are you able to predict based on profiles and capabilities that they bring to the table? Where are they sort of red, yellow, green maps, right? Where are they going to be dropping off, or where are they going to be super engaged? Can you predict that, number one? And once you predict it, are you able to then proactively intervene, interject, and make sure that these learners are on track, and that you can do sort of corrective actions on these learners, right? So there is a cohort level, intelligence that needs to be built in as well, partially which is already there on the Simplilearn platform, but I think there's a lot more to be done. So that's sort of the second problem that you can solve. And the third thing we run into is interpersonal, right? So a lot of learners come in and say, look, I think this cohort is not a right fit for me for various reasons, or this faculty who's teaching stylistically is not aligning with me. Can we then define parameters, and can we create intelligent parameters for cohorts to be created with the right faculty and the right engagement style and the right set of students together to truly make that cohort a sort of self-sustaining and supportive ecosystem for that learner, such that the learner feels like this entire program was just crafted and curated for me? That becomes sort of the holy grail for us in terms of education, if you may. And like I said, we've already started attacking all these 3 problems simultaneously. There are a lot more, but these are probably the 3 biggest ones that we want to solve. And my view is, once you're done with that, business value is immense, right? You have learners coming out with much better CSATs, more completion rates, and as a result, much better outcomes, which is really what we're trying to drive here. So very exciting times for EdTech. The revolution of AI/ML has come at the right time, and I think it's really time to revolutionize EdTech as well.
These are certainly exciting times. Thanks, Anand. Thanks, Vignesh, for a fantastic discussion. I think 3 takeaways for us would be maybe the 3 Ds, data, design, decisions. Ultimately, it begins with very good, high quality, high volume data. It also depends on how you design the whole solution aligned with the interests of the customer, the employees, and so on. And finally, it's about decisions at scale, decisions customized to every kind of user, no matter where they're coming from. Thank you all so much. We wish you all the best in your journeys ahead. Thank you.